What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie2988 coming at you live once again to the power of the internet. And I want to talk to you about these little creatures. I want to talk to you about Pokemon Sword and Shield. I'm going to give you my first impressions because I'm about halfway through the game. I want to talk about the controversy that's surrounding this game, and then we'll take a look at the reviews to see whether or not that controversy had anything to do with how people reviewed the game. Now, let me start off by saying I've really enjoyed this game. It's a Pokemon game, except it feels like it's not a next generation Pokemon game, even though it's on a next generation of consoles. It definitely could have been on the 3DS. The graphics don't make that big of an improvement. The animations aren't that much better. And in some ways, it's half of a Pokemon game because there's a huge chunk of the national Pokedex missing from this game. So you can't collect them all, which is the entire tagline for the series. Seems pretty important to be able to catch them all. Now, that's not to say that this game doesn't have new features. Number one, it's got a gimmick in it, like every game so far, pretty much the last 3 games has. This case, it's the Dynamax system, which is only usable in certain battles during raid situations, where you can Dynamax your Pokemon, make them super big, and get special versions of their attacks for 3 rounds. It's not that compelling or that interesting. In fact, I think it's less compelling some of the gimmicks in the other games. Then you have the open world aspect, the wild areas, and it really just kind of fails to live up to what we were hoping for when it came to an open world Pokemon game. I mean, you have the usual structure of the routes and the gyms and the cities being connected by the routes, but then you just have the wild areas that are giant areas that you can wander around, but it, at the end of the day, just feels like a giant route, so it doesn't really do much. You have the raids, and those are kind of cool, especially if you're playing with your friends. That's probably the best new aspect of the game. But again, it's really not all that different. Combat stayed exactly the same since it has since, what, 1998? Now, the good news is players have actually hacked the game, and they are beginning to put back in the characters that are missing from the Pokedex. So I don't know if you can do this on an unjailbroken Switch, but or a non-emulated version of it. But theoretically, even though Game Freak refused to do it, it looks like fans are going to go back and put every Pokemon back into the game because, for the most part, all of the resources are there. You can put in if you have the 3D models from previous games, you can import them. Most of the attacks, all the 200 some attacks that have been out through in history, is in the game. So it seemed like it would have been a real simple fix for them to be able to do this. And I genuinely cannot understand why Game Freak went this route. Nobody can. Now, the good news is for Game Freak, for Nintendo, and Pokemon fans worldwide, the game did sell 1.36 million retail copies in 3 days in Japan. It sold over 6 million copies worldwide. And keep in mind that these numbers generally do not include people who buy it digitally. So if you ended up purchasing this game digitally, your sale was probably not recorded by these numbers. But this is less than the previous Sun and Moon series sold at launch in those same 3 days. But then again, that makes sense. At the time, there were way more 3DSs. There are way less Nintendo Switches out in the wild. So it's hard to compare these numbers, but I do personally feel like the controversy definitely hit the game. I normally purchase both versions of the game. I felt no desire to get Shield. I picked Sword. I didn't pick up Shield. I don't think I'll ever pick up Shield. I don't particularly look forward to playing through this game a second time. It's a great passive game, and Pokemon always has been for me. A game to play while you're watching a show, you're watching a stream, you're listening to YouTube videos. So I don't know that I'll probably want to play through the second half. I might wait for the remake, because Game Freak will. And if they do the remake, I guarantee they'll include the entire National Pokedex. Even if they didn't already plan to do that, they'll do it just to appease fans at this point. Now, stopping to take a look at the reviews. Metacritic currently has 43 critical reviews for Pokemon Sword, and it's setting at about an 81, which is a pretty decent score for a Pokemon game. A 4.1 is the user score, but again, we've talked about this on the channel. I think user score is always a good impression to see how sales are going to be, not necessarily the quality of the game, but it will definitely give you an idea of whether or not people are happy with the game or angry with the game, not necessarily just the gameplay itself, but the politics and everything else surrounding it. And as you can see here, this has been review bombed to heck and back. Absolutely, people are mad at this game. I think the sales will pick up because I think a lot of these people will eventually purchase it when it goes on sale But as it is right now, people are just upset at not only the missing Pokedex, but the flimsy excuses that people gave. And I think it's important to take a look at Pokemon Sun's review scores as well. That game did incredibly better, 6% better than the newest entry when it comes to the critical reviews, and when it comes to the user scores, an 8.3. So the audience enjoyed it more, the critics enjoyed it more. So I think you can make a very strong argument that this is a step back for the series. And when it comes to the gameplay itself, when it comes to the story itself, it kind of returns to status quo. I mean, for the most part, this isn't a world-ending disaster that you need to worry about. It's very much a much more personal story, at least so far in the story where I am, in which you just play a Pokemon trainer trying to become the best in the world, and it's your interactions with the other characters that tends to be the most important. There's still legendary Pokemons and mystery surrounding them, and I haven't fully unpacked that mystery just yet for myself. But again, this does kind of seem like a safe call by the folks over at Game Freak. I think they just wanted to, instead of move the series forward and make it something brand new and cool, they decided that they would just go with the classic formula to try to bring people in on the Switch, maybe a whole new generation of kids. The problem with that is, once again, combat has not been updated at all. This is a very old school style of combat, which I still love as a 45-year-old man. I absolutely adore turn-based combat. I love the animations. I love the Pokemon. I love just farming in this game. It's a great passive gaming opportunity, but not everyone still likes that. And a lot of new people just who've never got into it, I don't think they'll get into it now. So I'm not saying I want an action-packed RPG version of Pokemon either. That's not what I'm saying. I love what I have, but I do feel like they could have improved on the formula in some ways, but they didn't at all. And when it comes to the new generation of Pokemon, I have to say I really enjoy all three of the new starters. Some of these other newer characters, though, are just kind of trash Pokemon. I mean, there's literally a dragon that lives inside of an apple, and one of its forms is an apple pie. I mean, there's a literal teapot and a literal teacup, and even the new versions of the newer characters, I just don't like the reskins. So there's some decent new starters and some decent new Pokemon, but for the most part, as a longtime fan of the series, I'm not impressed with some of the new ones at all. I still think they've made worse Pokemon, though. As bad as every Pokemon in this game, there's Garbodor, who is a literal bag of trash, okay? There's literally a key ring, a living, breathing, child's teething key ring. I mean, they ran out of ideas a long time ago, so it's kind of hard to harp on it at this point. Which I think is one of my biggest complaints about this game on a personal level. I like seeing brand new Pokemon. I like getting post-game, getting to see all of the older Pokemon completing the national Pokedex. But when it comes to playing through a game for the first time, I like playing with brand new characters and brand new Pokemon, and I'm not a big fan of the reuse of nostalgic Pokemon in this game. I mean, I picked up a Snorlax, which is, again, my favorite Pokemon because I feel like he represents me perfectly, and I've used that character ever since, and I will continue to use it right up to the end game because Snorlax is one of my favorite Pokemon. I would rather have been forced to use newer Pokemon to get to know them, to create an emotional bond with them. But the older style models, the older style characters are all over the place. So why would I bother with a new guy if I have an emotional connection to an older Pokemon? So with that said, overall, I do think Pokemon Sword and Shield are definite must-plays for Pokemon fans. It's a decent entry to the series if you've never played one. But if you are somebody who doesn't want to play it because you're upset at the reuse of assets, but not reusing all the assets, or not getting a new Pokedex, you're not interested in some of the new features, I think it's okay to wait, and wait till you can pick it up cheap or on sale. There's no real big spoilers. There's nothing here that says you got to play this day one, or even the first 6 months, or even in the first year. So it's good. It's not a system seller, but I'm enjoying myself. I will definitely finish the game. And that's saying something for me because during this busy time of year, I play about halfway through most games. I very rarely get a chance to actually finish it. But I like the fact, again, that it's on the Nintendo Switch. Gives me an excuse to be able to travel with it. Play it when I'm at a doctor's office. Play it when I'm in bed. That's good. Now that's just one man's opinion. I could be wrong, and I know Pokemon fans are fanatical. So you guys are going to let me know whether I'm right or wrong down in the comments section below. While you're down there, drop a like on this video. Go ahead and hit subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you can get notifications whenever a video like this goes live in the future. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. I love you very much, and I'll speak with you again soon.